Ron,
What's up?
happy Tuesday. Wait,
What's up, bro?
before we jump in, Brian, whisper status. I see
Yes.
something behind you that I've never seen before. And
What do you see?
It's a Hisense TV
Oh
box.
my God! What is that doing there? Actually, didn't even plan that.
Was that intentional? Are you showing off your
It actually was
TV of the year?
I mean, now I can finally be considered someone that has a Hisense that can actually review it. And we're going to be doing it all weekend anyway, but it was fortuitous for me to have this one. What's going on?
Well, I have to say that, this is your number one complaint was there's no TCL, there's no Hisense, not the good stuff, right? If you go to Best Buy, it's all the 4 series. It's the stuff that's under $700 or maybe under $600. Their good stuff is not on display, and I'm very excited to hear your impressions. And I'm sure you're going to share it at MWAVE because I know you're still unboxing everything. But yeah, everything is great. I'm getting ready to get out tomorrow, and you know what? Let me put this up real quick. Well, actually, before we jump into that, I wanted to share this with you. I think this is kind of cool. Let me do this real quick here. This is something that, a couple of days ago, I think last week, I shared the Samsung AAA discount. So if you have a AAA, American Auto Club, American Auto Association, whatnot, members could enter on the Samsung website and get these amazing discounts, right? He got the 77-inch for $25.91 plus another 10% discount because he's got another membership discount off the AAA and free mounting. And I'm just thinking, wow, I didn't even know about this discount until recently, until we started actually putting these up. But I have to say, this is Black Friday prices. I mean, look at that. $25.91 is the list price with that discount. And I'm just like, wow, Samsung really wants to get rid. And this is on the Samsung website. So it's not like, a Best Buy subsidy with the Visa card or whatever. Yeah, I mean, wow. So congratulations, Vishnu. I'm so glad you picked up that TV.
That was amazing. That's considering that I always bring this up in our live streams, the C8 was $12,000 at 77 inches.
Yes.
2017 or 2018. This guy's got a 77-inch. It's incredible.
Oh, totally. And people are I'm very excited for you to get the QM8, actually, once you see the different Hisense TV, because it also left quite an impression on me. Brandon saying, thanks for your coverage, Shomo. I bought a 65-inch QM8 for the $1,200 sale price to replace my bedroom. Oh, the KS8000. You know that TV very well. Absolutely. It arrives Thursday. So, Brandon, share with us, is it as bright as the KS8000? Although we know the black levels won't be as good, but that was what it was famous for, right, Brian? Did you have that for a while?
I had the KS9000, but
9,000. Okay.
Those TVs were still only like 1,200 nits, which was anything over 1,000 nits back then was crazy. So I'm sure the QM8's brighter. It should be better in every way.
Turn on the light a little bit. Yeah, something a bit more moody, right? I don't want to be too bright. I'm sweating here. The fan's blowing. And I figured out my microphone problem is I left it plugged into the USB, the receiver, and that creates issues. So apparently these wireless mics, you cannot have it charging while also connected to your phone. I mean, if I'm going to run 8 hours, I don't think these wireless mics will last that long, but we'll see. I'm experimenting. We'll figure it out. But today,
bring backups.
Yeah. Now, today we're talking about our favorite TVs, but as we always talk about, favorite is such a loaded term, right? I mean, dark room, bright room, large TVs. Some TVs don't even come in the right size. If you're in the market for an 85-inch, you can't go with QD OLED. So let's say I love the Samsung S95C, but if I'm saying what's my favorite 85-inch, it's out of the running. At best, it's an 83-inch WOLED, right? So I guess when we say our favorite TV, we're going to give it a lot of context. But have you decided yet, Brian, or are you still waiting for more TVs? Like, what are your thoughts so far on just TVs that have left an impression on you?
So, I mean, being as objective as possible, even before I checked out the the U7K, is TCL and Hisense are positioned to join the big three. The problem is there's not going to be a big five. So they're going to usurp somebody. And
Yeah.
we're in this really interesting point right now where LG has focused their lineup, Sony has reduced their lineup, Samsung has a lot of products, but Hisense and TCL have stepped into that. So the fact that they have very strong game this year, and then the others have come down, or they have one or two models that really stick out, like the G3, or Sony's A95, which isn't out yet. It's just a weird landscape. So I'll know more this weekend. But for me, the S95C is probably still the best TV all around.
Yeah, that left quite an impression on me. But here's a TV that also left an impression on you. Mark is saying, hey, your coverage of the 85-inch X95L, if I'm not mistaken, you're the only one who's actually seen it in person as a reviewer, because limited units. Mark, let us know, where did you buy it? Did you get it from Valley Electronics? Because it's not available in Best Buy. So definitely, Mark, where did you get the 85-inch X95L? And my impression really is just parroting Brian, because there's no way to find this 85-inch X95L. And of course, I wouldn't review it in my studio anyway, but it is a good TV. Can you share with us what your thoughts were? Because those that didn't catch your video, apparently you're very impressed, but you ended up not choosing it. What's up with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Classy was able to see it as well because he had gotten down to the store. I think he has some videos coming on it. I have my video releasing tomorrow is the X93 versus the X95. And what's interesting is how close they are. For me, being a gamer, and you and I always talk about use case being really what's important. What's the content you're using? It's still not gaming savvy. It has
Right.
that small game bar, but the fact that the Hisense behind me has 144 hertz, has the things I would use with PC, just it's hard to pay so much for less. And I said that years ago with the A90J. You had this amazing TV with less HDMI inputs. So as good as it is, it's Sony keeping their same signature of movie watching more than anything. And if you love that, then they are amazing at it because their processing is really next level, which I think you saw with the X90L.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is, you were looking at it from the point of view of a gamer, and most people, they don't have the same level. Like when I say most people, not our viewers, of course, but most people, when they buy a TV, they're just hoping the TV turns on, it looks good. They're not thinking of the finer things like the 144 hertz, VRR, 4K 144, 4K 120, PC gaming, all that stuff. That's all in your head. But if you were just streaming, watching sports, the X95L is a great TV. But what about, and you're saying Samsung for gaming, what about an 83-inch Samsung OLED, which is what we see right here? This is the image. Thank you, Alan, for that comment. Perfect segue. So it's official. Samsung is launching their 83-inch OLED. Remember, it's not a QD OLED, and this is critical to know. It is most similar to the LG C2, C3, G3, G2, same panel. Whether or not it'll be brighter, if it is brighter, it would be minutely brighter. It's not like QD OLED brighter. Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on, and it's the same price, by the way, as the C3. It's launching at $5,400, $5,300, something like that. But after launch, it's going to drop down to whatever the LG C3 83-inch is. But just about this TV itself, are you interested? If you're in the market for an 83-inch OLED, is this on your checklist?
Yes and no. I think we both talked. It angers me that it has the same number. I believe it's an S90, right?
S90C, yep.
It's S90C. So to me, S90C,
yeah,
that's very. I mean, I know the G3 doesn't have MLA at 83 inches. They don't exactly put that on the box. But to name this the S90C and have it be a completely different, and I know Samsung's in trouble a little bit with having varying panels, ADS, VA, but to have this TV and not have it be a QD OLED and not label it as such, even an SN85C would be great. That would be something I would prefer, but this is the one thing we haven't talked about. If they have an S90C, even if it's a WRGB OLED, if it has the game bar and 144 hertz, for instance, then it does beat out all the other WRGB OLEDs.
actually, you bring up a good point. One of our complaints during the preliminary shootout at Value Electronics this past spring, we had the S95C, the G3, and the complaint was that the G3 at the time they turned off some of those game bar features that were on previous model years. If the S90C 83-inch WOLED has identical game bar carried over from its S90C, S95C,
Yeah.
would you choose it? Would you prefer that over a C3 given that game bar?
So, I know we downplay the game bar. I have behind me an LG C1, and in the presets, there's an FPS, RTS, there's 4 different presets. I have each of them set differently. On some, I have blacks crushed for HDR rays. Others I have for low latency. So what's great is that in any game I play, PC, console, I just literally jump to that preset. So it's not just a throwaway, where on Sony, you would have to literally go in and change that game mode. And the game mode doesn't change much with Sony. It stays relatively the same, even with brightness preferred or gradation preferred.
Right.
So LG does have it, but not as much as Samsung. So if they come up with this WRGB OLED that has all of that functionality and finds a way for it to have 144 hertz, then it'll actually beat out the C series. So and then it puts the A80L even further to obscurity, which is a shame because the A80L is excellent.
And this takes us to New Guy's comment. I think it generally suggests this, but I want to hear your point of view. Which TV between the LG G3 and the S95C has more depth and clarity? So we're talking the G3 with the MLA versus the S95C. So when it comes to depth and clarity, so let's define it a little bit so we're all on the same page. Because so clarity, I would say you're referring to maybe contrast, or maybe you're referring to upscaling. I think the G3, if you're upscaling, it has a slight advantage because the G3 really does have a good upscaling. The 3D depth, however, we're talking dynamic range and HDR, and the S95C has more color depth, luminance over a broader range if the content is there. I mean, if you're watching Seinfeld or Friends, you're not going to tell the difference. I think if you're putting on Spears and Munsell, and we're not talking the 10,000 nit Spears and Munsell, but just even 2,000 or 1,000, there's a certain, because the luminance limitations is below 1,000 nits anyway, right? And so you could see the separation. So the S95C does have more depth as long as the color is there. And additionally, it doesn't have color banding in certain BT 2020 content, whereas the G3 does. For whatever reason, it's just the limitation of WOLED, but that's the impression I got. So for me, I prefer the S95C, and I can find content that shows that. If you're not watching my content, you won't see it. But for you, Brian, do you see it?
So FOMO and I did a stream. We did 16 hours.
2 9 hours. Yeah. 2 9 hours.
Right? We did about 18 hours. We found a few scenes where the LG was crispy in the image, like say more detail on a table, or the Samsung was soft around the edges, almost like they were using a dynamic resolution. I would say of equal content, full 4K, then I would say the S95C has that clarity edge. But anything sub 4K that requires that upscaling, then the LG has the edge. So it's what we're saying, New Guy. If you are looking at YouTube TV and low bitrate content, then LG has better upscaling. I mean, that's across the board as far as Samsung. Sony still has the edge, I think, there. But as far as you watching all around content, to me, the S95C's color and the times where it's brighter has the edge there as well.
Yep. And this also goes to what is your content. If you're gaming HDR, PC gaming, or even console gaming where you have the latest HDR content, I think you see that separation. We definitely saw that, right? Yeah. But if you're just, again, streaming on YouTube TV, Netflix, even regular YouTube, I don't know that you would see that big difference. So we are definitely, all of us collectively, viewers and Brian and myself, we're enthusiasts because, we like buying Ferraris when you can afford it. Just because you don't take it to the track, but we do like to hit it, stoplight 0 to 60 and have fun for sure. And so, yeah, that's definitely what we saw.
Well, that's from, was it Mark that bought the X95? So
Mark
for
bought the X95L, yes.
So Mark, where I think Sony's best strength is literally,
and he's not a gamer, so
yeah. So I mean, even if you can game on them, they still look great, Mark. But I think for Sony, the best thing is you can take the remote, put it in the preset you like, and literally put the remote away. No matter what it can adapt to almost all content. Where with other manufacturers, I'm always reaching for the remote to change to something more accurate or something more poppy. Sony is just very good at what it does. It does it very well. And I mean, the X95L, I think, has been underappreciated because it only comes in one size, so it's being overlooked. The X93 is being overlooked because people are saying it's a rebadge. So Sony's in a really weird spot right now with that, and it's a shame because both the TVs are excellent. But I think you're going to love it, Mark. I think you'll be really happy with it.
And Brandon brings up a point that many people aren't realizing. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Last week, a lawsuit was filed, class action. Samsung and Best Buy hit with class action lawsuit over TVs. Okay, so generally speaking, and I'll put the link here if you guys want to read it, but it's that whole, hey, it's promising this and that features, but apparently it's only limited to certain sizes. So we're not talking different models, right? Obviously, the 95C will have more features than the 85C. We're talking the same model. Remember those sizes where at the 43-inch, it's not a 4K 120 panel, or at the 50-inch, it's missing VRR, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And HDMI 2.1. We knew that was going to be an issue. Wait, it's HDMI 2.1. How come it doesn't do this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
And Best Buy's spec list also may not be accurate because these specs, honestly, this is a lot of specs. So whoever is cutting and pasting the spec, they're not verifying. Samsung will send to Best Buy, look, this is the spec. They're just going to cut and paste. What, you think they're going to go in there and double check the specs? We do, and we still get it wrong, right? Like, wait, what? Really? It doesn't have VRR? It is a nightmare. I feel for Best Buy. Now, Samsung, I have very little sympathy because, come on, guys, you guys know what you're doing. Best Buy's like, I'm just trying to sell a TV, man.
Well, I mean, I think you, FOMO, how many times have you yourself in the last 5 years been like, I was on a Mexican website and I saw that they removed VRR. So like somebody who's chilling in the marketing department's like, oh crap, FOMO saw that. Put it back. So we always talk about how engineering isn't connected to marketing and marketing isn't connected to corporate. But we said this even last year with the X95K, where I reviewed the 85. I gave it glowing reviews. You guys had the 65. And you're like, what the hell is he talking about? So it's now that's the same technology. They're both VA panels, but this ADS VA,
mixing all that different stuff up.
So or even 85 is
even the Sony. Remember the X95K? The smaller sizes were a CSOT with a slight blooming tint, whatever I did not like. But then the 85-inch was an AUO, and AUO is a better company in terms of their product quality and so forth. Huge difference. We're not just talking minor. I mean, I have blooming and lifted blacks. 85-inch owners, this is, and not to say that Sony should be sued, but it's a mixed bag. I mean, at what point does it justify a lawsuit? At what point it's just, you got to accept it? Because I know this whole, what you just said about in the middle of the night, the marketing department's like, what's happening is Rob Brennan had that story where I put out the video on the X900H. Oh, 4K 120 is not coming. Look what it did. They turned off. And so Sony headquarters in Japan calls the American Sony America rep in charge of TVs, Rob, who we know. He's like, do you know about this? Did you see FOMO's video on this X900H? Is this true? Are we not giving out, doing VRR 4K 120? He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so Rob's like, because of you, I was woken up in the middle of the night from Japan to hunt it down. And so I said, so what happened? He goes, apparently it was a typo. And we still don't know who did it, by the way. But someone was not authorized to remove it. And they did. And then they spent the whole weekend running it down because they don't want this lawsuit.
So you brought up a really good point too, FOMO, in the sense of before we came around, when it was CNET and Digital Trends, and it was more the written reviews. Once they did their review, it was on wax, and then you just trusted them.
Mhm.
We're all year, for better or for worse. But the challenge is you review the 65, I review the 85, and very few people are reviewing all of them. So you don't have people reviewing 43-inch QN90Cs. So you don't know that the 55 and the 50 are different, and it's just really hard to make an informed decision.
Mhm.
And then once you get it home, who do you talk to? Because you're like, I think it looks dull. I'm not really sure. And then you get into the forums, and it just gets really, really tough.
Yeah. Great question, Josh. Hit this question. Before we get to the super chat, I see you, Daniel. We'll get right to it. I don't know what to get, the 75-inch QM8 or the S90C. Or should I just go 85-inch QM8? I don't want to lose picture quality to the size. I game a lot and stream movies. You can't go wrong with a 77-inch S90C, in my opinion. That is, you're saving $1,000, and you literally have G3 S95C quality at the 77-inch.
Yeah.
Now, if it's only a 65-inch,
Yep.
and you'd be bidding with a 75 QM8, then might as well go all out and get the 85-inch QM8 because nothing trumps size. Brian, you know that, right? It's like the minute stuff that we hammer, like, oh my gosh, you said little shadow details missing. 85-inch trumps all of that. Trust me, you will love the size, and there's no PQ loss. Brian, is he losing pixel density? I mean, he might be literally losing pixel density, but can he see that?
Not from 77 to 85 or 75 to 85, but or as you were saying, 75 to 77. But what's interesting about the mother glass of OLEDs is they're in a weird spot where 77 beats 75 anyway, size, but then contrast ratio. An LED has no shot against a larger OLED, no shot. But the fact that all LEDs are 75 versus 77. And then it goes the other way where every LED is 85.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really mixed thing. That's why I'm holding on to my C1, because I know once I jump to 85, if they release an 83 QD OLED, I can never go back down. So I'm kind of hanging back because I don't want to get into that spot. And I can't get an answer from anybody if they're going to give me one.
You don't want to test drive a Porsche because you know you're going to go home to a Camry. So
Well,
I'm not going to test drive it.
Well, and for you guys that are wondering, I did notice this myself, and I said this to FOMO off camera. I was testing the Q195C, which I love, but I was kind of forced to be closer because there was stuff behind me. And there is such a thing as it being too soft, too close. It can only be 2 feet difference. So if you're jumping from 65, going from 65 all the way to 85 is it's a huge leap. You are going to feel a difference.
Yeah, I think the 65-inch S90C is the same price or a little bit less expensive than the 85-inch QM8. Start with the QM8 unless there's something about it that's seriously wrong. Like, oh, I notice issues, right? Because you cannot go back in size. Once you're used to the QM8, I don't care if it's a QD OLED at 65, you're not going to go back. That size is just so good. And hey, Glenn, thanks for the question. You know, I think KG is just really busy playing the guitar. So I sold him an electric guitar because he's like trying to start a guitar.
You killed his channel by selling him an instrument?
KG's like,
that's the way to kill the competition.
What guitar should I get? I go, forget it. I have the perfect guitar for you. Let me sell you my old GNL, right? I mean, it's got the dual humbuckers. It's just, it's one of those guitars that does everything. It was called the Fallout, and I haven't used it in a while because I'm using different guitars now. And KG, just trust me, this is good. And ever since he's gone, I haven't heard a peep from him. I'm convinced he's just deep playing guitar.
Guys, you gotta remember that YouTube grind it's not.
It's real.
It's not. It's you can put out 3 videos a week, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, my last video came out. Oh crap, 2 weeks ago. And
you lose track. Yeah. Hey Daniel, thank you for that super chat. For 95% of consumers with an all-around use case of streaming, gaming, a little bit of everything, would you agree that the 65 to 75 TCL-Q7 is the best deal for the bang for the buck? Just generally speaking, you can't beat it. So, I mean, the 75 inches just under $1,000. So I know, well, I don't want to spoil your impressions of the U7K, but let's just say in this budget of under $1,000, the TVs are just so good, whether it's Hisense or TCL. And then you get that same, very much above average, far above average, with a 75-inch size. Yeah, it's the one I'm recommending right now. Everyone that goes up to me, oh, I have a daughter going to college, here's my budget, Q7. The minute I hear, here's my budget, and it's in that size range, get the Q7. Because any other brand, other than maybe Hisense, for that price, you're losing out on this and that, unless it's something very specific. Like, I know the Sony X80K is not bad, but it depends. If you're looking at HDR, the X80K or the 85K or the 85J, it doesn't have that pop. The color is phenomenal, but the Q7, I think, is now the bare minimum for HDR. So yes, Daniel, I do agree. And I'm hoping that Brian gets the Q7 at some point.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you this, I'll give you the spoiler. I took it out of the box yesterday because we're trying to squeeze stuff in before we leave.
So you took it out? Okay.
Yes, I've played with it, and it's one of the best TVs I've ever seen out of the box.
That's saying something.
It's really, I mean, that's against any other LED. I was shocked at how good it was. I was just like, wow, okay. Even its build quality, the name is very small now. It's not this big. It's not tacky, but it's local dimming. It's color, screen uniformity. I was very impressed with it, and it's.
Let me stop your screen uniformity. That's where I got the screw up, and Hisense is immediately so just quick update. Hisense is taking back the U7K with screen uniformity issues. They're just going to trash it. They will send a brand new Hisense, no screen uniformity, to MWAVE. So this is a segue to MWAVE, but you check your uniformity so it's good. So I cannot wait to hear your impressions, because mine is a little bit affected by screen uniformity.
Screen?
It was horizontal, kind of like dirty horizontal lines. So clearly it was a manufacturing defect, right? Now, in full screen content, you really didn't notice. But then the minute there was white on, it was a little distracting. I know both Sammy and Ninjishin, they were here. They're like, this is the worst. And so the calibration video was like, this U7K. So they were too distracted by the DSC to really give it a fair shake. But I'm glad you can, because I was impressed, but then that kind of, but I'll have a new impression at MWAVE. And speaking of MWAVE, let me share this page. Okay, so this is, where is it? Oh, and please click like, everyone, if you just joined us. Here we go.
I can't see how many people we have in here.
We have 224 people and only 20 likes. Everyone,
come on, guys.
Come on. Okay, so you and I are going to MWAVE. This is the first. So I was there last year, kind of like as a visitor / host, right? I did a little segment on buying TVs, because most people at MWAVE last year are home theater enthusiasts, but we're talking hardcore home theater, right? $5,000 screens, $2,000 screens. I mean, they are projection. They got giant subwoofers that are like 22-inch giant dual subwoofer. I mean, they have shaking chairs. These are hardcore. But they also want to buy a TV. So they don't watch my channel. They watch, like, you guys know Youth Man, right? Who cover home theater really well. So this MWAVE is hosted by Youth Man and his friend Ryan. And they invited me, hey, I want to come by and just check it. I go, yeah, let me come by. And next thing I know, I'm hosting a segment on buying TVs and stuff. And it got a lot of really positive response. So they said, hey, this year, why don't you come down and let's do an entire TV demo, how people really use it, right? No calibrations, because 99% of the population, even if they get a Sony expensive A95L, they're not going to get it calibrated. But you and I, this is how we watch TVs normally. I mean, I get it calibrated for review purposes, but for my own use, you know what? I deal with it, right? Because that's how people watch TVs, and that's how we're going to do it at MWAVE. So I reached out to you. I said, Brian, I get full reign at MWAVE to do this demo. So why don't you share with the audience what you want to do with these demos, with the TVs that we're going to have there?
Well, you reached out to me right after you completed it last year. I watched some of it, some of what you did. But we talked about how even with Value Electronics Shootout, it's very solidly based on calibration and criteria, motion handling on low bitrate content, certain tests. What I always wanted to see, especially, I think some TVs would have performed better out of the box than they did calibrated. Things like the Z9K, I thought looked more dull without the processing. So for us, what's going to be great, much like you see FOMO do our comparisons on this channel, we'll be able to, on the fly, like we did at Value Electronics that day, you want to see vibrancy? Here it is. You want to see this? Here it is. And on the fly, we'll be able to control and show you what you want to see. And what I like about what FOMO does on this channel with those settings, he's discovering it the same way you are. So we'll be doing that on the fly. You want to see dynamic tone mapping in this way or that way? Okay, let's do it.
Mhm.
And I think being able to have Hisense and TCL and these brands there versus just the elite, you'll be able to really see how well they do or how well they don't do.
Yep, yep. And since it'll be streaming live, which means that not only will be streaming, you guys can watch it while we're doing it, but we're going to check in on the chat. That's why there's two of us, right? As one is playing, we will talk with the people who are attending, so you can attend in person. Tickets are still available, but most people aren't going to fly to Kansas City, but they will be asking questions. So, come on down. I'll post the links for this weekend, but while I'm playing with it, you guys can say, hey, why don't you turn up the volume, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're just going to have fun. The whole point is, how do people really use these TVs? So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that for sure. Because
for you and I, if you guys remember the TV shootout, not last year, but the year before, FOMO and I kind of started this golf chat during the shootout. We didn't do it last year. We're kind of giving you a sneak peek on what we're going to be doing also at the shootout in the fall.
The shootout, when is the TV shootout? It's the last weekend of September, crossing into October. So I think September 30th or something like that. That weekend is the shootout. We'll all be there, Brian, myself, Classy, it's going to be fun. But I'm going to be there this year. I'll be the one producing the entire content. We'll be hosting, producing, so it's going to be fun because we're going to have behind-the-scenes calibration live stream. So those of you geeks out there who want to know, all right, guys, when you're calibrating, what is it what are you seeing? Yeah. We're going to talk to all the calibrators there, the classies. Remember, they're not judges, though. So they're calibrating. They're telling you what their impressions. They may have a favorite, and you might have judges that rule a completely different TV. Yeah. So you're going to have calibrators complaining. John Reformato is going to be there, and you're going to see them, I can't do this. I want you guys to see how hard it is to get these TVs standardized and normalized for comparison, because what you'll see is, oh, no, the G3 or the Sony, whatever, if I do this, I'm going to get perfect blacks, but then the skin tones are messed up. Or if I do this, skin tones are perfect, but then the white wall is not accurate. That's the discussion. And they have to decide, okay, if people are sensitive to skin tones, why don't we do the skin tones and forget the white walls? Because if we correct for the white walls, it'll win the white wall, but then the skin will look funky, right? So this is the perceptual matching. And all the TVs is going to have some level of that. And so you're going to hear them talking about it. Now, whether or not you guys can influence the decisions is a whole other matter, but for sure, every year, this is an ongoing issue behind the scenes, because how we set up that calibration, it doesn't matter what shootout it is, it will ultimately influence the decision maker. Because if you want the judges to rule for skin tones, you make all the skin tones as accurate as possible, but then maybe one TV has the wall screwed up and something else has the water screwed up. It looks teal, right? I mean, no TV is perfect. So it'll definitely be fun to go through that. But I'm going to ask you, what are you looking forward to when you see these kind of shootouts? Like, what is it you like to share?
So I thought the play-by-play that we did a few years ago was very valuable, because when you look at the way these guys we called it the jeweler. What was the glass that they used to look at the pixel?
Yeah, the loop.
When you're talking about clarity, the S95B and the A95K, it was down to the aliasing on a flag on top of a building. So, sometimes the processing that we love creates noise. Sometimes the processing you take away leaves noise. So for me to be able to also have a camera on me, or to be able to show you up close what the judges are looking at, as well as talking to the judges, whether it's an executive, and not an executive, but an engineer, the guys watching, then the judges are filmmakers, guys from HBO. You'll talk to all of them throughout the day on both days, where last year FOMO did, I think, one with David Park separate. We're going to be able to do that on the fly like you see at a football event, which I think is going to be, it's going to keep you from just staring at the TVs and not having any context.
They also want to know, what are the judges looking at? Because the judges have this criteria, but each judge has a background that they bring with them. Like we said, we have the Criterion guy, got the guy who loves Samsung TVs. That's his reference monitor is the QN90 whatever, because he's doing broadcast TV. He uses Samsung to represent the typical TV.
Yeah.
They're all looking at something different. And so it's fun to talk about that. I want to hit this question real quick. We need to know what your budget is and how bright is your room, dark or bright. Otherwise, our answer will not be relevant. So, and Joey Martin purchased a 77-inch G2 for $28.99. I was going between the G2 and the A80K. I was also looking at the 65-inch A95K and the new 65-inch G3. Opted for the larger size over newer tech. Thoughts and opinions, or thoughts and options, or maybe he means opinions. Okay. I am very much a fan of the 77-inch size. I think it's a great size. I think it's noticeable increase. And here's, for me, if you're at 77, you're used to the size now. Now your next upgrade can be to an MLA 83-inch when it comes out in 5 years. So you have a roadmap. You're good to go because you're enjoying the size immersion. I think that more than anything, in all content, you benefit. Whereas the 65-inch G3, you only benefit in certain, things pop and get bright. But in SDR, it just looks like a C3. But a 77-inch G2 will look good in all content. So I think thumbs up. What are your thoughts?
Well, every year we talk about you can either buy this year at this size or last year at 10 inches larger. That's kind of been the roadmap for a lot of us purchasing. And I think that's a great call because, like you said, 77-inch is just a more cinematic feel. And to me, 77 is the first size where wide aspect ratio doesn't bother me. Letterbox bars didn't bother me at 77. So I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And just felt with new guy, definitely the S95C. It's dynamic range. And this is where some will disagree, right? It really brings out that extra specular highlight that may or may not be accurate. I mean, you could kind of disable that, but ultimately Samsung wants you to have fun with gaming, and that does make it pop more. And the LG, if you have HGIG on, all that stuff, Samsung doesn't have that super accurate HGIG mode, but it's very subtle. For gaming, I just prefer the S95C and the S90C. So I do get that 3D, but then that 3D image is we're preferring it. The creator may not want to give you that 3D image. They want you to see it flat. Well, guess what? The S95C gets you the 3D image, which takes us to Siwi. I'm going to pronounce it Siwi. 2,000-pound budget S90C, 65-inch S90C at around $2,000 in the US. I figure it's probably the same in England or UK. S90C is such a good TV at 65-inch. Or if the S95B is still available, but I choose the S90C because it's got the newer game bar, all that good stuff. Don't look back. You will love your first QD OLED TV. And thank you for the super chat, Jermaine Brown. Purchased my TCL QM8 this morning on Amazon. Can't wait. I wonder if he means QM8 at the 85-inch and combined it. But either way,
nice.
How much did you pay for it? What was your Amazon Prime Day deal? But congratulations. Between you and I think the QM8 is going to kill it in the market this year. And it's not because of influencers or anything. It's just a freaking good TV.
Well, I mean, but
it's just such a good TV.
Well, when you take its performance and then you look at something like the QN95C, which is triple the price, it just makes it very hard to make another purchase. It's got the performance and you can buy 3 of them. How can you argue that?
Yeah. How could you argue? So next gen tech, CNET announced 83-inch QD by Samsung later this month. It's not QD. We just showed it. We showed the link earlier. Yeah, it's WOLED WRGB. It's an LG panel. So if it is QD, you can go tell them next gen tech that they are wrong. It is 100%. It's a C3 essentially with Samsung's magic dust on top of that, but the magic dust is not QD. Yes, we gotta put an end to this.
I wish that was true. Yes, but I think Sonia asked if you missed her super chat, FOMO, up top.
Oh, who? What? Let me
Sonia,
go up.
I think she just put, did you get my super
chat? I may have.
I didn't see
it. You know what? I apologize.
It might
Let me
be.
see. Oh, you know what?
I don't see it. It maybe didn't go through. Sonia, just if we missed it, please just it says Sonia Howard, 6:44 p.m. She said it.
6:44. Oh, so we'll get there. Maybe I haven't. Do you? Eternal Melancholy asks, do you think Dolby Vision matters? I say no. The differences are visual. but it doesn't matter because every TV does it differently. So what's the point? Like, Hisense is different. QM8 is different than the. I mean, it's the Q7 doesn't look good with Dolby Vision. The QM8 looks good with Dolby Vision. The Q7 looks. It's like depending on what TV you get, Dolby Vision is a mishmash. To me, I think it's more trouble than it's worth. If you get the flagship TV, maybe, but if you don't, yeah, it doesn't really matter. And even when you do get the flagship TV, the maybe means you're getting maybe a little bit of shadow detail because it'll make it too bright. But what if you want it bright? Well, Dolby Vision is not going to let you get there, depending on how the grader did it. And the best Dolby Vision 4.0, is only available on streaming. So if you only watch disc, you're getting the oldest Dolby Vision anyway. You're not getting all the latest advances. So yeah.
And on streaming, the LG has a standard Dolby Vision, a vivid Dolby Vision, and Sony has bright and dark and vivid. So there's less flexibility when you're watching it. You're kind of stuck with Dolby Vision. So I don't like it for that reason.
And Kyle, you, Brian, have seen both these TVs. I cannot answer this. Z9G, Z9K, just as good. What are your opinions?
The Z9G, you're going back how many years now? That's 4 years ago. The Z9G is a monster. Probably 4,000 nits, but it was unwieldy. There was blooming on it, a lot more than you would see on even the Z9K this year or the Z9J. So Z8H. So I would say it's a very cool TV, the Z9G, but for today's local dimming, I think you would struggle with the blooming that's on it. And it's massive. I mean, it's 4 inches thick. It's huge. If we're talking about the same TV, you might have said Z9J. The Z9G looks like a transformer, but it just its viewing angles were not very good. And,
super bright. That was frame to frame, right?
Yeah, but even the Z9K now versus the X95L, the X95L is nowhere near as bright, but looks better. Its local dimming is just so much better.
Yeah. And Giddy G Man, thank you for the super chat. How big a difference U8K will be once calibrated? I have to say that U8K, not calibrated, it actually looks pretty close to the Q7. So the U8K out of the box, it's not all the TVs. So this is not going to be just praising Hisense or TCL. Each TV company has their own little bias. QM8 with a bit of red push, even after calibration. I feel that out of the box with no calibration, the U8K and the U7K are a little bit more accurate than the QM8, but the U8K does have more points to calibrate. And however, there's some things you cannot calibrate, which is if it's over tracking EOTF, you cannot bring that down. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? But to me, that's fine. I mean, err on the side of slight brightness rather than slight dimness, because you'll never sell a TV that way. But I think if the U8H is any indication, once that TV was calibrated, it was like indistinguishable from the A95K on streaming content. I was like, wow, this thing's, that's why I kept it last year, because it's a reference level TV. Now this year, both the U8K and the QM8, as far as accuracy, not accurate enough. But HDR impact, the QM8 just nails it. I mean, this is like the Q9FN all over again. I think it's a fan favorite. That's why I'm holding on to it, although I do know it overtracks EOTF. However, its black levels and blooming control is just amazing. And the reason why I like it slightly more than the U8K, and this is where there's no wrong answer. U8K has better processing. It has better color accuracy if calibrated. However, the QM8, perfect black bars, better blooming control, slightly better contrast, but worse colors, slightly worse image processing. However, I think it's really hard to get that contrast and brightness so close to OLED. So I chose the Hisense last year. This year, I'm going to choose the QM8 as my TV for the year. Not to say the U8K is bad, but definitely it's use case specific.
Well, that's what I love about, if you look at when they say the influencers, whatever the hell they call us, tech reviewers, if we have favorites. To me, FOMO put Hisense on the map 5 years ago when you were just starting. And the fact that you love the U8H that much, and it has been compared to a lot of the best TVs this year and last year, it just shows you the very next year, if this one wins. And your thoughts. There's no And I'll tell you, talking to all of us off camera, I don't know a single one of us that's like, I like this one better because I like this. I like Sony. I like whatever. Not a one of us. I mean,
We are
if
not
Zenith
fanboys.
if Zenith comes out tomorrow with a TV, it's and it's good. I don't care. GE, whatever you want.
Speaking of Sharp, I am so excited
Yeah.
to get the Sharp 1000 dimming zone 65-inch TV. This is the Sony X95L that should have come out 65-inch. It didn't. I'm going to use Sharp as my Sony flagship mini LED.
Yeah,
Let's see how good it is. And once we have it, we can compare it to the QM8. But this is Sharp stepping up. Quickly, Michael Lemus, thank you for the question. QM8 or S95C? Well, the budget is so different. So if you're talking QM8 85-inch or S95C 55-inch or 65-inch, I'd go with the size. I mean, I know my family would enjoy the 85-inch. They would like, what? QD OLED? I don't get it. Give me the QM8 85-inch. So, well, Brian, let me ask you that: 55-inch S95C or 85-inch QM8?
I mean, look, you guys, I'm a fight fan, and they'll always say a very good big man will always beat an elite little man, but the big man has to be very good. You can't just have a big fighter. You know what I'm saying? So a QM8, if you had a crappy large TV, it wouldn't. But the fact that the QM8 is as good as it is, that's not close. I mean, there's nothing that the A95K or S95C can do because you might as well put a computer monitor up there in comparison to the QM8. And
Matthew, this also relates to your question, but more importantly, it's that 14 feet viewing distance. At 14 feet, you need to be at a 140-inch screen anyway. So you got to get the largest TV you can. I remember we were at the projector shootout last year in New York City, and we were looking at the 110-inch, 100-inch, and I was like about 10 feet away. I'm like, why does this screen barely look large enough? And I took an measuring tape, like, oh my gosh, I need from 10 feet away at least 100-inch. I can't go back. And you were there, right? I'm like, how do people watch from 10 feet away a 65 or a 77-inch? So Matthews, Thomas, you need to get the largest TV you can, because at 14 feet, man, that's far away.
So here's the ridiculous thing. So in this room now, my gaming chair is 7 feet away, right, from the screen. But if you sit straight up on your couch, it's 8.5 feet. But if you lay back, it's 9.5 feet. So you have to really adjust where your head is going to be. Those 2 feet make a big difference. 2 feet too close is too close. So I'm too far from my 77-inch A80J. I'm 11 feet away. So I would need something larger. So 14 feet, yeah, you're still pretty far away, but you'll be fine.
Yeah. This is a good debate, though. I think this is fair. Is the G2 still worth buying, or spend the extra for the S90C? Cost is the same, but I like the 5-year warranty. So really, you're going with the S90C, super amazing HDR, bright sports in a bright room. And then the G2, we know its limitations. We know it's DSE issues if you're in the panel lottery and you lose. But the 5-year warranty, right? I guess it depends on your content, right? Yeah, what size, what's your content? Because at the end of the day, if you get the G2, even with a 5-year panel warranty, but you have this dirty screen that annoys you, you can't replace it because of the dirty screen. There's a panel lottery. The S90C, more often than not, has very uniform screen. Very good. But it doesn't have a 5-year warranty. It's like any other TV, right? 1 year, unless you get extended warranty. So I would say, wait for Black Friday. The money you save, get it from Val Electronics and have him sell you his 4-year warranty, or wherever you buy it, get that 4-year warranty and make sure, now you're covered, right? Because the G2 panel warranty only covers the actual panel replacement. You still have to pay for labor. So either way, if you're going to pay a little extra for the extended warranty, then get the S90C and get the extended warranty as well.
Well, and for Rick, though, I think we learned too in the last couple of years, the inclusion of the heatsink didn't mean the TV was this much brighter. So, but the QD OLED is proven to be better. So a QD OLED versus a non-MLA OLED is a different story. So I would definitely go with the QD OLED, and that's worth the price difference for me.
Oh, here's a great one. You are a Costco lurker, Brian. I think that's your part.
Ribeyes, tires.
I love your Best Buy lurking and the Costco lurking. And what we know is that Costco has their own version of the same TV. Sometimes a slightly different remote. Sometimes they put coupons in there or whatever. But now that Costco is carrying the S90, I assume it's the S90C. You think there's a difference? I don't think so. I mean, at worst, it might be another remote control, but I think it's the same TV. Save your money, get your 5-year warranty, get the S90C at Costco if it's there, man. You got to go with that.
Well, and back in the day, actually, almost without fail, the Costco version would be better. Meaning it would have it would have a different, like I remember with Panasonic Plasma, it had a better screen reflection on it, had a different coating. The problem is researching those, Ron, it's very hard to get a definitive answer if it's exactly the same. So I would just look to make sure it's a QD OLED, make sure the HDMI inputs are all there. But Costco's return program, and you get yourself some sweatpants, some socks, and you're good to go. Shamar.
Now, remember, he was pining for the Z9K last year, and he waited. His patience paid off. Congratulations, Shamar.
Shamar is my guy. Shamar is a good dude.
And even if it fails the Starfield test, I have yet to see it affect real content. The Starfield test, not a biggie for me. But let us know if you enjoy your content on the Z9K, and let us know what content that is. Excellent.
So Shamar, go watch my Z9K versus S95C, and then I think you'll be very happy to see like that brute force brightness that you're going to see. I mean, it did really well against a QD OLED, so I think you'll be happy, bro. I hope all's well. He's a good dude, Shamar. Nice guy.
Totally. Yeah, he's so patient. Other size going from 77 to 83 inch. Any reason to upgrade from a 77-inch C1 that I absolutely love to one of the 2023 OLEDs? I think this is what you always say, right? Love the TV that you have. He loves it. If you love it, do not upgrade until it breaks, because now you're like, the minute you upgrade, if you don't see a huge difference, you're like, oh, what a waste of money. And I'll tell you, depending on the content, let's say you are gaming and HDR is your thing, you probably will notice a difference, because gaming on HDR with MLA or QD OLED, you get that extra brightness, because the HDR graded games can be graded much brighter than 2000 nits if they wanted to, right? Whereas content, especially streaming, is limited to under 1000 nits. I wouldn't upgrade. But you already love it. Hold on to it until it breaks, and then when you do upgrade, boom, you're going to get blue phosphorescent OLED. A lot of the durability of the QD OLED that's in question will be solved by then. And you get an 83-inch QD OLED maybe. The longer you could hold on to that C1, the bigger the TV or the brighter the TV, whatever you love, it's just going to be better when you get out there.
Well, and Jimmy, for me, I easily could have switched this out for even a C3. Get that 200 nits APL boost. I know it's not noticeable. So it's more trouble than it's worth. And if you upgrade your TVs every year, then that's fine. But most people, it's 3 to 5 years. If you really love your TV, get all your money you can out of it, and then your next jump will be something. You may find an 85-inch TV down the road. I would wait.
Agreed. And well, let's see, Brandon, he loves this C1 as well. So you remember when the C1 came out? Everyone loved it, and then 2 years later, let's move on to the next thing. And you're still with the C1, right? You have to have a lot of self-discipline not to buy a new TV every year based on the hype. Because if it's time to replace the TV, it's a good time for you. And then you get the TV, and then what do we talk about? A year later, you're like, I feel so alone.
Well, I mean, so everybody forgets that the CX was like a plane crash. Its launch it ended up being fine, but the C1 was like a return to the C9. So for a lot of us, I mean, it's still a great TV. Shamar, my man, good dude.
I'm still looking for Sonia's super chat. I don't think I ever found it. I'm so sorry, Sonia. I can't find it.
Sorry, just let us know what it is.
Off the way. Yep.
Oh, I just lost my screen.
And Chad is saying, I'm dying to see Brian's X93L versus X95L video tomorrow.
Yep. I'm actually finishing it as we speak. Well, not as we speak, obviously. But what's interesting about that comparison, FOMO, it's very much about how you were with TCL and Hisense, where I would take your information and your opinion and then echo it. It's the same way here with the X95L and the X93L. It's just as good as they are, Chad, as amazing as they are, the QM8 in those TVs being so cheap, it's just really, really tough.
Yeah. Have you
and
ever?
to have more functionality.
So Waleed has a good question. Is there an upgrade program for TVs? I think Samsung had one, didn't they? Like you get on their lease, right? I don't know if they still have it, but you would lease a Samsung for 1 year or 2 year, and then every time you upgrade, they give you credit. You pay a little bit more, and then you get a new TV. And there's no limit as to when you can do that. But that was a program, maybe that was a year or two ago. I don't know if they still have it. I personally don't use that program, but some have, and they literally get a new Samsung TV every year, and Samsung gives you a reason to, because maybe it's profitable, so they do that. Unlike some companies where it's not a huge jump year to year, maybe it's every 3 years, Samsung tries to make a big song and dance every year. But Samsung.com may have the program. So if you go on Samsung.com, instead of just looking for it, you just go to one of their support reps, because those guys are paid to sell TVs. So they'll do everything they can to get you into a subscription program where you get a new TV every year.
Yeah. The problem with that is you're stuck with a Samsung. It'd be great to have like a leasing type thing. I know the UK has something like that in their Best Buy equivalent. I know Russia has it. Some other countries have it. But the US, the margins are just too small.
Yeah.
For them, they only make, and look, not these TVs are $2,000. Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, totally.
Shipping them $600.
I think this is a good time for us to talk about our favorite TVs of the year. Now, we know the Sony A95L isn't out yet, so we're going to have to put that discussion on hold until the actual shootout. Can you believe that Sony's releasing their Master Series or their flagship at the beginning or in the middle of September? I mean, it was late July, then it was August, and now hopefully it's in September so we can get it in time for the shootout. But what's happening there, Brian? I mean, we were talking about this off air. Is what's happening at Sony? Where I think it's a production constraint. There's something happening on the production side, because I know people have told me in Japan there's a 65-inch X95L not even going to make it to the US, and the A95L is really delayed, where we might as well consider it a 2024 model. What are your thoughts about Sony and where it's going?
Well, it breaks my heart a little bit, because even something like the X90L releasing now, typically that's the first TV of the year that I review. So what it ends up coming out, we talk about this all the time, FOMO, it's a little expensive, and then by the time Hisense and TCL jump in, the X90 is cheaper. Well, it's a brand new TV. So you immediately take a hit there. The A95L, which will be amazing, is just coming out so late that by the time it drops, the S95C and the G3 are going to be greatly reduced.
Mm-hmm.
And their successors are already being prepared. So we saw this at CES last year, FOMO. We had guys that bought the A95K 2 days before CES. And they said, then they found out the S95C was going to be so bright and half the price. They were immediately upset. So when you buy the A95L, it's a huge gamble this year, because it's going to be so expensive. And guys, it's a Master Series. It will not drop.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be expensive for a while. And it's just a hard sell when in a few months we're going to be at CES showing you what the G4 and the S95D is going to bring. And
what about the rumors, right? Rumors start in November. So, right, 2 months after the A95L is released, suddenly you have rumors about this, that, and the other. And people still consider the A95L a 2023. So I suspect that Sony might even market the A95L as a 2024 model, which it should, right? Just, hey, this is our 2020, because what? They're going to have a 2024 A95M?
And it's funny. Do you remember when they did that? They did that with the AAH, and one of the other OLEDs were only 6 months apart.
Yeah.
And it really screwed people up. So it's a Master Series. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, but it's just so late to the party that it's and I have people that really want it that are now buying these TVs because they really don't want to wait for that reason.
Yeah. Hey, Louise, good question. Obviously more expensive, the Q90B, or go cheap and get the Q7. But if you're going to go Q90B, why don't you get the QM8? Like, is there a reason you don't want the QM8? The same price as the Q90B.
You probably get money back, bro.
Get the best, or let's go get the cheapest TCL, right? So,
Louise. So what's funny is you're illustrating the actual problem with these brands. He's like, look, I'm looking at this one. Oh crap, over here's the flagship. Oh, it's cheaper than these two. That's awesome. I don't want the best one. I want this other one. QM8, my friend.
QM, the QM8 is better than the Q90B. Now, actually, before we jump into our favorite TVs, because this is where the disagreements come in. So I spoke to Classy a lot, and Classy he's a calibrator. And as much as I like the QM8, the fact that the QM8 could not be accurately calibrated, unlike the U8H and possibly the U8K, right? The QM8 simply does not have enough points to calibrate. Even though it says 20 point or 2 point, it's literally only 1 point works. So you just calibrating for the at best the white point at best. Even that, right? It's missing something. So they couldn't really fix the red push. But I was telling class, even if you take all that into consideration, the enthusiast will never get the TCL anyway. I mean, the enthusiast is still going to get the Sony X90L or the G2, whatever. The QM8 is for everybody else who doesn't care if there's a touch of red push, if they have great contrast, big size, $2,000, super bright, HDR is blinding, Dolby Vision works well. Everything else that appeals to the common man, he's not going to calibrate this TV, and he's okay. Now, he could get a similar Sony X95L for 2 times more. And of course, the X95L deserves that recommendation. But if his budget is like $2,200, I cannot go anywhere but the QM8 for an 85-inch or 75 or 65, you know?
Well, and to be honest, Momo, when you bring in the bang for the buck, that I know those companies hate it, but when you know you've only spent a couple $1,000s or $1,000, it immediately kind of eases your stress. When you know you spend $7,000 on something, you immediately have to meet that expectation. This thing behind me, wow. And that's without me considering the price. But the fact is, it's just like, and I even saw this with the QM8 versus the Q195C. Now I can buy that TV with the QM8 out there. It's just very hard for me until I see them side by side for me to pay triple the price for what isn't triple the performance. And it might not even be better. That's the real fear. So these bargain brands that are now getting better, if they're better picture quality and they're cheaper, then you have a really interesting conversation. And I will say, though, the little bit of Hisense I've been dabbling, FOMO, I do not like the settings.
Yeah.
How the settings are set up.
It's basically standard Google. They didn't do anything special to it. But it's better than the TCL QM8 settings. They removed even more of the settings. I mean,
even the picture settings. I'm in general. I was like, what picture mode am I in? Oh, you're in general. I was like, so I had to go back out.
Yes, you have to go to general. Yeah.
Like, where are the rest of the settings? Oh, I have to hit menu. The gear button takes me somewhere else. So there's an elegance that's lost there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the picture quality itself, for that money to have almost no blooming, is incredible. I mean, it really, really incredible.
I see why Louise skipped the QM8. QM8 doesn't go smaller than 65 inches. So if you're shopping at 55, there's only the Q90B and Q7. Big jump in performance. The Q90B will have, it's brighter, better contrast. Just everything is a little bit better. So you're paying that premium. And if you enjoy Tizen, the Q90B Tizen, though, is a little bit lagged, though. So just take that. But overall image quality is better on the Q90B for sure. Okay, now this is for you, Brian. Who has the better game bar, LG or Samsung?
Samsung. LG took a step back this year. I haven't followed up with the G3 recently. I don't know if they've unlocked the different presets, but they didn't when I reviewed it. Later on, they had locked them, but Samsung just has more choices, and they're all on the menu. And they have the 144 hertz. So regardless of the game bar itself, there's just more functionality.
Yeah.
And there's more flexibility of image. Now, the HCIG might be better on and Dolby Vision gaming, but I think what in my mind was a strength 2 years ago, Dolby Vision means nothing to me, even less so in gaming. So Samsung's ability to change with static and active, you can really make Samsung look very cartoony or very accurate. And that's where
Yeah.
the presets, you saw that in person, FOMO. When you went to original, it matched the G3. And
Yeah.
then you were able to go into custom or standard and really push it.
Really made it pop.
So,
Yeah.
and a lot of information in that game bar. LG, I think theirs is great, but it's definitely 1 and 2.
And this raises the whole FOMO. Should I wait? Should I wait? So let's say, Faisal, do you think we will get a great TV to upgrade from the 77-inch S90C by 2026? What could it be? Reasonable 88-inch size? So let's put the size aside. For sure, we know what is coming in 2025 is that new phosphorescent blue, which will be introduced in all the QD OLEDs as well as the MLA OLEDs. It will make the TVs slightly brighter across the board, more stable blue. And the reason why it can be pushed harder is it's supposed to be more durable. And the power, I would say the luminance of this blue is better than the current blues. Now, how it turns and converts into image quality is all speculation, but the assumption is it's significantly better. So right now, OLED has phosphorescent green and red. Only blue is not, right? It's just hyperfluorescent. So once it gets to phosphorescent, then suddenly you're going to have all the OLED TVs, both LG and Samsung, become brighter. Now, will they be able to move this to 88-inch by 2026? That's possible, but I think you'll see the improvement in the blue first because everyone wants brighter, so they'll be able to market that quickly. And going 88, it's a smaller volume. The volume isn't there. So 88-inch maybe by 2028, but I don't see it becoming a big thing.
There's only one on the planet right now, and it's $30,000.
Yeah. Yep. And let's see. Oh, this is a good one. How do I find the right affordable Dolby Vision TV without feeling like it's cheap garbage? So here is the rub, Jedi Master. Dolby Vision on cheap TVs is garbage. Until it's not. But more often than not, it's garbage. And the reason is Dolby Vision is a very aggressive way of telling the TV, you can't do this, it's too bright, make it look like SDR. So your TV is cheap. Dolby Vision turns all HDR into SDR. You're unable to push the TV to its limit. Whereas without Dolby Vision, so you disable it, the TV gets to push to its limit, which means it'll get as bright as it can, so you can have that wide pop. Now on an expensive TV, because it's capable of more, then Dolby Vision allows it to do that capability. But on lesser TVs like the U7K, Dolby Vision looks even dimmer than it should. But that's Dolby Vision doing its job. Now that you know what Dolby Vision does, I would say do not use Dolby Vision on lesser TVs. It just doesn't look as good. And on even good TVs, sometimes they get it wrong, like the Sony A90J, the Sony A9G, all the Sony OLEDs prior to A95K did Dolby Vision all wrong. And they were expensive. And so, not Dolby Vision's fault. A lot of the TV makers just don't care to do it right. And that's why Samsung's like, look, we are working hard just to get HDR10 right. So, you know what? We'll pass on Dolby Vision. Licensing might be an issue, but I think it's just extra resources they don't need to do.
Well, and Dolby Vision too, if you look at even LG, when you go into, there is no disabling dynamic tone mapping. There is no other choice. It kind of is what it is. And now you're like, okay, well, I don't love the way it looks. There's nowhere to change it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Dolby Vision content out there. And we've learned over the years that it's not necessarily done well. It's just tacked on.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, but my TV's super bright. Why is it so dark in this setting? I just saw that with it's the Hisense. I watched Extraction, and all of a sudden here I was locked into Dolby Vision, and I couldn't change much. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm watching this. I guess I'm stuck. All right. So I wouldn't chase it, is what I'm saying to you.
Hey, Thomas, great question. I'm upgrading from a Samsung KS8000 55-inch to the Samsung S90C. Is it worth it? Mostly watch films and series. I think it's worth it because you're getting infinite contrast, right? You get to watch HDR films how it was intended to be seen. The KS8000, the blacks are not black enough. The bright specular highlights, it's just everything is lifted. It looks very two-dimensional. Compared to an OLED, slightly washed out. The S90C gives you that full impact. I definitely think that it's just going to OLED, and Samsung's QD OLED is the OLED to get. So I think it's worth the upgrade. What do you think?
Well, the S8000 was very good for its time, but it was edge lit. It was, it was very bright. But if you remember the blooming on a KS8000 wasn't around images. It was literally in columns.
Mm-hmm.
So to see is contrast ratio. You're going to see, you know, real HDR, the blacks. I mean, basically the S90, S90C, S95C, they're basically LED OLEDs. That's how bright and punchy they are. So there's really no, and it's probably brighter than the KS8000. KS8000 was bright for the time, but it's getting up there. I think you'll be very, very happy with it.
And people are asking, what did they miss? So Nick wants to know, what's the best, because this actually is for you, what is the best 85-inch TV for gaming and movies? But let's say gaming.
Unfortunately, I did not see the QM8 other than CES. I'll see it this. Am I going to see it this weekend? Are we live in 85?
Not going to have the 85.
Not gonna have 85.
You're going to have to wait for the shootout for the 85. If Robert can get the 85 to the shootout, it'll be the X95L versus the QM8.
Yeah, so I mean, Nick, you can look up my video on the X95L versus the QN95C. That is, the QN95C is the most fully featured 85-inch TV on the market. 144 hertz, flexibility of image, 5 HDMI 2.1, ultra wide support. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's vibrant. It's hard to get. It's not available everywhere, but right now it's the best 80 plus inch gaming TV.
Yeah,
and it's better than everything else too.
For 2,000 or more, 77-inch. Black Friday, I don't know if S90C will come down to 2,000, but I believe the S90C at 77. Okay, so for 77-inch, you get size, right? So I'd still prefer you get a 77-inch. And the question is whether it would be, the C2 will be sold out by Black Friday. And I think it's probably sold out right now at 77 inches. So it's hard for me to recommend a non-QD OLED with the prices of QD OLED matching the C3. So just wait until Black Friday and you'll get your selection of QD OLED. Unless you need to get LG because, you know, you like LG, there's nothing wrong with that. Then it'll be the C3 because the C2, even the 65-inch, probably sold out in another week or two. So, and I think the C2 is fine. I think the C2 actually is a better deal. The C3 is the same thing, right, Brian? I mean, it's not, the C2 is a great TV. So you will be very happy with a 65-inch C2, save some money. I think it's like, what, $1,400 right now on some of these retailers. So, yeah. Let's go down. Well, so we got off track. Your favorite TV of this year so far. So I'll list mine based on a couple of things. So I'll start with QM8, TCL QM8. That's my favorite TV for brightness, sports, just all around. That's my all-around favorite TV for everyone. And it's so bright. Now, because I have so many accurate TVs that I'm used to, although the red, you slightly notice it, even after calibration. Regardless, though, I do like the QM8 because when I compare its contrast to OLED, I'm like, how is it so close to OLED? And even then, I have to say, okay, the QM8 is just blowing me away. And this is not to say the U8K is bad. It's definitely better than the U8H, but the QM8 was like, this is such a good TV. And another TV I really liked, ready to be surprised, the Sony X90L. If it was full screen content, if I didn't have to worry about black bars, the Sony X9 and price, you know, like, my budget's $1,600. I could choose anything up to $1,600, 65-inch. The X90L would be in my short list for sure. But I watch a lot of black bar content, and I watch it in a pitch dark black room. So the raised black bars, I'm used to OLED. I'm sensitive to it. Yep. So, but for like full screen stuff, Sony X90L definitely highly recommended because out of the box, the colors are perfect. Everything is good. You can see how the QM8 has those slight accuracy shortcomings, but the contrast in the QM8 is slightly better. But the Sony, its processing, it has less dimming zones, but how is it able to do what only the G3 could do with pan? If you saw my live stream, it was like, wow, I'm getting this specular detail I could not get out of the QM8 with 1,000 dimming zones, right? So Sony, I know you don't care about black bars, but you're clapping for the X90L as a full screen TV for sure. So that's, and then of course the S90C. 77-inch. I don't have the smaller sizes, but the 77-inch S90C, just spitting image of the S95C, except for bright sport full screen S95C, measurably slightly brighter side by side. You see it? It's so slight that I will give the win to the S90C for price. $1,000. I mean, it's so good. I have the 77-inch S95C, but I continue to recommend the S90C because I know you guys won't notice the difference.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 favorite TVs so far. I have the G3. I think it's great. I use it as my reference HDR tone mapping TV, but I still prefer watching on the S95C. But just to capture the differences, it's easier for me to use the G3 because it's the same size. So, and as far as budget, the Q7 is so impressive. So if your budget is under $1,000, I consistently will say 75-inch Q7. That's it. I mean, 75 inches for such a good TV.
You
right?
really like it that much? Even really?
Yeah. So those are my favorites. Now, you've seen different TVs than I have. What are your favorites of the year so far?
So mine, at where we are now, I think the S95C is the most complete. If I had an 83-inch, if there was that size, I would have it. The only weakness I think it has is that bright room performance if the sun is directly on it.
Oh yeah, I don't have that problem. Okay, yeah.
I mean, and the sun has to be really on it to make that difference. Otherwise, it's excellent. Then I like the G3. I think the problem with the G3 is I think it came out so early in the year, people kind of lost track of it, and it felt very samey compared to the other C1, C2, C3. But the G3 would be number 2 for me. Then I have the X95L and then the QN95C, which is interesting because I would consider the QN95C over them simply because I use it for gaming. But that would be my top crew. Though I'm very impressed with the Hisense 65-inch behind me, I wouldn't put it in that top group. But then again, it's not really fair to put it there either.
But pricing differences being what they are.
But as far as value, this thing out of the box, I would tell you just by looking at it a little bit, I would keep it.
Yeah.
Where normally something this price, you're like, I mean, it's okay, but it doesn't have the contrast ratio. So I mean, I think it's been a very good year for TVs. I think you win no matter what you choose. But I think the limitations of size, like the QM8 not being smaller, the X95 not being smaller, I think you're really like that guy Luis. He had such a great question.
Q7 or Q9?
We slapped him. Like, what are you out of your mind? And he was like, I don't want that big. You're like, oh Jesus, wow. He slapped us back. He was like, yeah, guess what? It doesn't exist. You're like, oh, sorry. But even I forgot that.
Right.
So even to have these TVs not be available at different sizes, I think it's been a messed up year that way because half you guys can't look at the X95. You can't see it reviewed. Other ones won't go for the X93. There's no 8K Sony.
Right.
Samsung has different panels for every size. So even my QN95C review is being held up by the 65-inch. I can't confirm if it's a ADS panel. I can't recommend every size to you. So it's been a good year, but a really odd year for that reason.
I like Robert Lawrence's question. FOMO, why do you think the Starfield test doesn't matter? I don't like blooming or faded small details. So, and I think we've talked about this off air. So Robert, I used to do Starfield test on all my LCD reviews, right? But what I've noticed is that the Starfield test doesn't fairly reflect real content. So the real content that I love is the Greatest Showman with that stars in the hat, whatever. Doing well in the Starfield doesn't mean, because I know that Samsung does really well in Starfield, but then in that specific scene, they just crushed out and dimmed the specular highlights. And other TVs that might not do as well in the Starfield, it looks really good in that scene, which is what we watch. So the connection between doing well or doing badly on the Starfield, it almost is over-exaggerated in the review. It is one of the, ratings, I don't even think has a Starfield test rating. I mean, they have their own kind of specular highlight that they measure. The problem with Starfield is it's not fixed. It's going from dim to bright and then moving. And I understand why they're doing that. It's testing 3 things: local dimming algorithm, tone mapping algorithm, and motion processing. And in a scene where all 3, in a condition where it's perfect black against one white, okay. But because those scenes are so rare, doing badly or doing well does not reflect on any other real content. So that's why it doesn't matter to me. Brian, is it
Well,
important to you?
well, it used to be for that reason. What's funny is LEDs would smack OLEDs in the star field because they wouldn't crush them. Back in the day, C7, you couldn't even see the stars. And what happens now is it seems like because it's 1 or 2 stars, and some of these TVs, the local dimming doesn't even get started because it's not, you're never going to watch a movie with 1 or 2 stars or 5. You're going to see a full field, a spaceship flying. So, as FOMO says, it doesn't accurately represent when the local dimming kind of gets going. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you're thinking about local dimming, you're talking about transition. In my test with the X93 and X95, it's amazing. Slow transition, they looked identical. Fast transition, the X95 was better.
Right.
So the star field is also coming from one side, back, forth, forward. But if you look at, even Shamar mentioned the Z9D. Now the legendary Z9D crushed them.
Mm-hmm.
It's black level control, and even Rob Brennan will say, as good as the Z9D was, its lack of blooming was because it crushed blacks. We just didn't know that LEDs were doing that back then. We just were like, wow, no blooming. Same with the 940E. So Sony's going to fail that test because they want shadow detail. So you may see more blooming from Sony just because that's their signature, not because they're not capable.
Yeah.
Or where FOMO says, and I know this because I've seen this happen, Samsung will dim the entire screen and all the stars will be there, but the screen will lose half its brightness. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not indicative of real content either.
Right, right. And a quick shot, G3 better than the S90C? I'll tell you the G3 has better warranty, but the S90C is overall a better image quality. However, the G3 will do upscaling of low bitrate content better. So if you have sucky YouTube TV from a sucky internet provider, I take the G3 because it doesn't matter on YouTube TV if you have better HDR. But if you're watching high quality HDR, then the S90C. But if you need Dolby Vision, well, G3, right? And so it's like you need to
Love
tell
that
this your use
S90.
case. Yeah.
I will tell you guys what worries me about the S90. And this
Mhm.
is just me because like Samsung is a girl that I just can't trust. Can't trust
Mm.
her. I
Because
have a feeling,
the sneaky firmware.
I mean, you've heard me before, sweetheart. I have a feeling that with the S90, someone's going to wake up over there and go, oh my God, they're virtually the same. And they're going to hit the switch. Bloop. It
There you
makes
go.
me nervous. It's so good that it makes me nervous that they're going to unleash one or the other. And they've always been good at knocking one back versus elevating one. So I'm always nervous that someone's going to wake up at the controls and cripple the S90. That's just my fear. I've been hurt before.
Hey, what is being called a cheap TV and expensive TV? For me, for a 65-inch, we'll use that as a standard size because that's the most popular size on sale right now. If a 65-inch is less than $1,000, that's when it starts, the quote-unquote cheap TV starts. So the QM8, the U8K are just above $1,000. So they've crossed the threshold into not being cheap. $1,000 is my threshold. Now, obviously, $500, if it's less than $500, it's a really cheap TV. But anything for a 65-inch, generally speaking, under $1,000 is what you're calling a cheap TV. So the Q7, 800, whatever, $799, $699, that's considered the cheap TV. But the U8H last year was just at $999. It was at just right there, breaking out of the cheap TV because it launched at above $1,000 and it finished at $999, $899. So TCL and Hisense are raising their game. They've crossed past the cheap threshold with the U8K and the QM8. They are now solidly in X90L's range, which is the Sony X90L is $1,500, and we know by the end it'll end up at $1,100, $1,200, which is where the QM8 is right now, and it will stay there until the end. I think probably $1,100 at most by the end of it all. But that's context. That's my cheap TV. Brian, what is your cheap TV?
I mean, almost exactly the same, but I feel like we have to find a better word than cheap. It almost feels like we're talking bad about it. But the fact is, and it used to really mean that when you talked about a cheap TV, you're like, oh, the build quality's crap.
Right.
We were just talking about the TCL I reviewed before Thanksgiving. It was my
the 4 series. It was the 4 series.
My sister-in-law had it, and FOMO and I couldn't even find what it was. And I was actually shocked about how good it was. But then as sitting with it, you're like, okay, this thing is obviously cheap, meaning the local dimming wasn't even existent. things like that. However, when you start seeing TVs like what you're seeing that have, you mentioned the A80, not the A80, the X80K or the X80s in the past, you're buying an 85-inch TV with no local dimming at all. It's now you're seeing full array mini LED sub $1,000. So you have cheap, but the quality. So it's really, really interesting.
Wally has a great question. He's going from a Sony 850D, which is a much older Sony, to the QM8 or Q7. So I believe the Q7 is a better TV than the 850D. So I'd go with a Q7 and max out on the size. That way, it will still be better than the 850, and you're getting a larger size depending on your budget, right? So because although the QM8 is better, but if you don't know what you're missing, then get the Q7. That's how I would approach it. What are your thoughts?
And Wally, I mean, the 850D is 2015, I believe. So
Yeah.
that year, the D series had some pretty heavy motion blur issues. You can't go wrong with either one. But again, that QM8 is just, I think the saturation, the brightness, there's just no beating it. So I think you'll be very happy with it.
Yep. Totally.
Brandon said the word is inexpensive.
Affordable.
Inexpensive is the word. It just sounds, it's just right. Cheap. Just sounds so
cheap. Sounds like everything about it is just bad. Faisal has a good follow-up. How is the S90C able to perform so well with blacks and highs without a heatsink? How do you think Samsung make the S90C prices? So it does have a heatsink. Actually, they call it a heatsink this year. It's a thermal layer. It's graphite, whatever. Yeah, thermal pad, but they call it a heatsink. So they do have something. And I spoke to Samsung Display, so check out my interview with Chirag, and he was very clear that Samsung Display sells all their QD OLED with a heatsink to Sony and to Samsung. And so that's one. Secondly, a QD OLED is slightly more efficient than WOLED, just slightly. So there's not as much heat, but then it gets brighter as a result, right? So they make it up. So it gets brighter. So the heat is still there. Now, as far as the prices, Samsung Display is trying to break into the market. So their prices are incredibly competitive, and they're being forced to sell it cheap by the parent company or sibling company, Samsung Electronics. And so even that, they are still one of the few profitable display companies. LG Display is dying, losing money, hand over fist. The market is not good for LG Display right now. Samsung Display is killing it with the QD OLED, and they're ramping up production. It's only going to get less expensive. And QD OLED is less expensive to make because it has less waste. Using the QD inkjet approach wastes less money, and they only use blue as the OLED. So I guess the efficiency is there. Now, LG Display is really struggling. This is why I'm concerned. This is why I spoke to you about. As soon as people discover QD OLED superiority in terms of its just pure image quality, LG needs to do something special. And I don't know how quickly they can do that, but this is the first year that Samsung's taking QD OLED seriously. They're ramping up production into next year. Prices will drop further with economies of scale. What are your thoughts? I mean, what does LG have to do?
So those of us that have watched this very closely, the S95B was just the sacrificial lamb of Samsung's whole
sacrificial lamb.
And we know people that are connected to this that know that if you picture that we all work for Samsung, we have market share in mini LED by like 90%. It makes no sense to do OLED or do quantum.OLED. So they throw the S95B out there. They lost a ton of money on it. They did not make money on the S95B. They sold it for cheap. They did the same thing with the S95C this year. They dropped it. They threw it out there. They leaked the price, if you guys remember.
I remember the price leak.
Right? Now, Samsung controls where Best Buy places their QD OLEDs, or any TVs for that matter. The QD OLED was put aside 10 TVs away from the main Samsung pad. So that change of putting it with the rest of the lineup has been done on the fly. So what I'm saying to you guys is internally, they've made a decision that they're ridiculous to not take it serious. So it's almost like they've discovered why they're continuing with the 8K lineup, but even they've realized, hey, let's invest more in this.
Yeah.
in spite of themselves. So they're really in a win-win situation. But I think the fear FOMO was cannibalizing their own lineup. The S95C beats every other TV in their own lineup. That includes the 900C, the QN95C. So I think cannibalizing it has been hard, but I think for them also now going WRGB, they're like, screw it, we have something for everybody.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
What can
83
G3 what can G3 do? The MLA was great, but the fact that it was limited to a few sizes, it wasn't on the C series. There's no Z3, which to me the best TV in the world is the Z series. No Z3 this year. They just don't have the numbers. They don't have the options. And I think, like you've mentioned, in regular content, they can look very samey.
Yeah.
And having it on the gallery edition alone, people were really upset about the stand, and they don't want the thicker panel. So a lot of people, when they walk in a room, they like the C series better because it's a thin OLED. So they're really in a bad spot right now. And I thought the QNED lineup, letting that disappear, I thought was a big mistake.
Yeah. Well, progress moves on. Now, Ben has a great question. What's your opinion on purchasing TV insurance or extended warranty? I think we're all afraid to lose money so quickly if the TV breaks outside of warranty or you're going to replace it. No defects so far with my Sony, but wondering about the panel issue you experienced with the QMate. So he's referring to my QMate where I was supposed to have it in comparison with Sony, but it had this line, someone had this green pixel on it, and so it turns out to be a panel lottery loss. So I'm going to get swapped out. I'm going to get a new one from Best Buy. So great. But here's something as context, Ben. Last year I got the Samsung flagship Q90B out of the box. Local dimming was broken. I had to call Samsung, guys, you sent a reviewer a broken TV. Oh my God, right? So they swapped it. But it happens, right? So this is a Q90B, hardware fail. Local dimming was broken. And then I had the.
Remember, you did that live.
I did that live.
And the QN85 was destroying it. He's like, look, I know the 85 is good, but like this is really bad. And we did like 3 hours that night. We left the poor thing up there looking like it was great.
And Samsung sent me a replacement. The replacement was fine. It was great, but I was the only one. Apparently, last year the Samsung local dimming fiasco was a thing. It was two things. It was a hardware issue, which I had, and it was a software problem. And so people didn't know which they had. They just swapped TVs. By the end, they cleaned it up. So Ben, there is no guarantee that your TV, whether it's a Sony, Samsung, LG, won't have issues because it's still luck. And which goes to, should you get TV insurance? I would, if it was a TV where I'm paying $2,000-$3,000. It's an extra few $100s. I would take that if I get the discount, put money back in the table, get extended. Because if I keep my TVs for more than 4 years, I don't. But when I did, today I think that's an issue. Back in the old days of CRT, it feels like they would last forever. I hate to say it, TVs, even the flagships, aren't built to the same, quality standard. I mean, people bought the G3 or G2 last year, the large one, the 83-inch. It turns out the power supply was just, the power board was too weak. They took it from a 77-inch or something. And so the 83-inch kept on blowing out power boards, or the G2. And so, they replaced it, but it happens to all the brands. You just don't know. And Brian, you had your own the walk of shame story with your flagship Samsung. This is how expensive was that?
$12,000.
12,000?
KS 9800 is 12,000. So, but here's the thing that I think for your question about insurance, keep in mind, I would go with Best Buy's Care insurance because it's a no questions asked, where the other insurances are kind of like a refurbished phone. It has to be certain things, certain structural damage. It's not just a replacement. Like, so if you have dead pixels, it might not be replaced. So whatever insurance you do go with, make sure it's not like a refurbished phone. You want it to cover a lot, and some of those don't cover. They don't cover burn-in, for instance. So be careful what insurance you choose, but it's worth doing. And remember, back in the day, FOMO, the insurance cost almost as much as the TV.
Oh yeah, totally.
Now they're pretty affordable.
All right, and some super chats I almost missed. Here we go. Hey, J Stuff, thank you for the super chat. What's up, gentlemen? Hope all is well. All is well. We're getting ready to leave for Kansas City. I'm actually working out, and I have to restrained myself from eating too much barbecue ribs this year. Last year, I think I gained like 5 pounds.
I can't wait to gain 10 pounds.
Oh, so I'm like, I have to restrict myself, protein only, none of that corn muffin, and it's just
So if you see
horrible.
us on camera with barbecue sauce on my shirt, you're like, oh, geez, sorry about that.
No white shirts, gotta bring red and brown shirts, right? Match the barbecue sauce. Hey, Stephen Michael, thank you for the super chat. I used to watch TV. Now I watch videos about watching TV. How do we look on an OLED TV, right? Thanks for all the awesome content. Waiting for delivery on a 77-inch S90C so you can watch us on, right? From Samsung for $28.79. This is what I'm talking about. That was that AAA discount. Congratulations, Stephen. Thanks for your. And this is what we do. Like sometimes Brian will see a great deal on Costco. He does those Costco alerts. Our hope is to get you the TV you want at the best price, whatever that may be, right? Sometimes Robert has an amazing deal. So, and just a reminder, I don't know if you guys saw my post. So at the end of MWAVE, some of these TVs, we're going to sell at a huge discount because the demo's over and we don't want to hold on to it. And we're able to sell them, I believe, I have to look at my post again. Let me see here. We're able to sell them with a warranty. Yeah, and it only has like 100 hours on it at most. It's just for the weekend, right? 100, 200 hours, definitely less than 500 hours. And it'll be an 83-inch G2, a 65-inch C3, and a 65-inch S90C. So if you guys want this TV at a discount, let us know. Just you guys can reach out to me on Twitter, DM me at FOMO Reviews, right? And so, yeah. Or DM Brian if you can find Brian, and then we'll talk and we'll tell you what the price is because obviously we can't share the price publicly, but it does come with a manufacturer's warranty. So let us know if you guys are interested. But thank you, Stephen. Maybe we can get someone a good S90C a home. Let me see. This is it's been a long time since we just sat here and started chatting, huh?
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
So here's a great question, Michael. What's the best TV you've seen this year for YouTube TV NBA games? I might get the Sony X95L. I think the upgrade in size and processing from my Vizio Quantum X. Remember when Vizio made good TVs? Do you agree? Absolutely. So if you caught my recent live stream comparison, and I just put it up, I think 2 days ago, over the weekend, the Sony X90L was phenomenal for YouTube TV. It was really good. I loved its processing. Colors was great. So the X95L is one step above the X90L by a huge margin. And you saw it, Brian. It's perfect for low bit rate like YouTube TV. YouTube TV, we all know. One day it's 1080p, the next day it's 480p. It's just all over the place, right? And so with the Sony X95L or even the X90L, I have every confidence that it will make that content look best for basketball. I was watching tennis that was in my stream and I noticed, I can see the adjustments. So definitely. And the P Quantum X, I'm surprised it lasted this long. Congratulations.
So, Michael, mine broke during my review.
Your video broke during your review. Mine did too. That's
I was filming, and I was like, But I love the X95L. I mean, Michael, check out my channel. I have a video coming out tomorrow versus the X93L, which if you see the differences, you might want to save money and buy the X93 at 85.
Yes. Save a little bit of money. Very similar TVs. But it's funny that both of our TVs, mine was a 65-inch that broke, yours is a 75-inch that broke. And I think, what's his name? Linus, he put his on and it's just weird blooming and flashing like Vizio.
Like, what the hell? I think, his thumbnail's like best TV in the world.
You're like, what the hell?
Yes.
And that was it. That was the end of Vizio. You notice after that year, no more. I mean, it was such a fiasco that they're like, okay, we're done. We'll just put out ads. We'll sell cheap TVs, right? So Vizio officially sells cheap TVs, but they make money on ads. So much money that Samsung's like, what are we doing wrong? So many of you guys,
they don't even care. It's
they don't care. They make more money per TV than Samsung does in terms of margin. They make so much money. They're like, why do we even care about performance? We're just going to sell you a cheap ass TV with ads. You'll be happy, you'll save money, and you'll like it.
And what's sad is Vizio was positioned to basically be above TCL and Hisense. I mean, they were above. I mean, TCL basically ripped off their whole design, their P series, all their series talk, and they stole it, and they did it better.
Yep. Micah, any thoughts on the 75-inch Q7 for $1,000? It is the best 75-inch for $1,000 you will buy this year. Yes, it is very good. Now, the U7K may come close, but I have found the Q7, because of Dolby Vision, it's better. Okay, Dolby Vision doesn't look on the Q7, nor does it look good on the U7K, but Q7 does it a little bit better. I prefer the Q7 processing over the U7K, and for $1,000, you're not going to find any TV for that price at 75 inches that comes close to the Q7. It really is highly recommended for value. And thank you, Shaf, for the super chat. FOMO, you mentioned that TCLs get better from firmware updates throughout the year. QM8 is my first TCL, fingers crossed. What kind of updates should we expect? So they are very good at fixing critical issues. The Google TV, remember that TCL 6 series that Best Buy literally took off the shelves so they could fix, update everything? The original Mini LED 8 series from 3 years ago, I had it for review. It was a mess. Roku kept on rebooting. I mean, I couldn't even finish the review. I had to return it to Best Buy. But I was told by the end of the year, like 12 months later, it was a very good TV. All those buggy issues were addressed. Given that history, the issues so the things that TCL could fix if they wanted to is, one, is if they choose to, they can make the EOTF more accurate and not overtrack. Samsung did that, and they got yelled at. Remember that? It's more accurate. I don't know how many people returned their Samsung. What? I wanted it bright.
That's not why I went with you.
Because when I opened it out of the box, oh, it's awesome. And then later they changed the firmware. No one wanted it. So TCL could conceivably do that and then get complaints that they dimmed their TV. The red, they would not be able to fix that, or they won't want to. They won't want to fiddle with color calibrations and a firmware update. So you're going to have to deal with that slight red push. App repairs, some apps, it's between them, Google, and the app maker. So I think there was a complaint, and I haven't been able to get it to work either, is if you get an internal app, you cannot turn on or off dynamic tone mapping. It's not even available. So we just assume that's always off because it, I believe, turns everything into either Dolby Vision, or if it's Prime, it's HDR10+. Whatever it is, you don't have control over dynamic tone mapping. Now, I don't think it affects image quality that much because I tried the app, it looked fine, but that's something we're going to have to hunt down. I really don't know why it doesn't work. I mean, these are a lot of assumptions, but that's not really a critical fail for me. So right now, the QM8, really, there's nothing that I, as a reviewer, would say, you need to fix this for the consumers to be happy. Unlike the failing Google TV of 2 years ago, or the 8 series, which was not good when it was released. So this one is actually pretty stable. So, but you will expect it.
The 8 series. Well, Terry right in the chat had it 825.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, you'll be. I mean, it's good out of the box now, by the way. But maybe they'll fix the calibration, the points of calibration, so you can actually calibrate it properly. My guess is doesn't mean they will. What is it we always say about firmware updates, Brian? Assume they will never happen.
Yeah, and just I don't know. It's Samsung hurt me, baby. What's up, Sammy? Sammy's in the chat. You got
all right, hey Sammy. The best 83-inch is the C2. Why would you pay right now? The LG C2 is $39.99. There's no reason to get the G2, the G3, or the C3 at 83-inch, right?
Best TV of 2023. We have the Sony A90J Master Series.
or that one, right?
Like, oh crap! Really? Am I still? And the Oscar goes to Star Wars.
It's back.
The Godfather wins for 2024.
I mean, is this amazing that 65-inch Q7 $700? That they've redefined value and cheap, affordability, performance. I'm very impressed. That used to be the domain of the 5 series.
Well, I'm impressed because we were at CES. I remember Hisense going full mini LED across the board, and then you were a little disappointed that TCL wasn't doing mini LED across the board.
Yeah,
but you like the Q7's full array, versus I think the Q6 is the direct view, the direct LED, right?
The Q6, yes.
Okay.
So the Q7 has full array local dimming. The Q6 is maybe side is it edge lit? It doesn't have full array local dimming,
They
right?
call it direct display or
Yeah,
something now.
yeah.
Hi, Lisa. How are you, my friend?
Lisa is on. Hey, Lisa. So, what are your thoughts on this? Refurbished OLED or new QM8? So, refurbished aside, right? I'm not going to address that right now. I'm just going to address it straight up, C2 or QM8. If you're in a moderately lit room to a bright room, the QM8 looks amazing. Its black levels are amazing. It's so much brighter than the C2. Watching sports on that's going to be great. I would get the QM8, especially if you're looking at the 75 or 85 inch. There's no way that a C2 at 77 inch, it's just... Now, in a dark room, though, I would get the OLED because now I can appreciate the infinite contrast. I can see a little bit more of that shadow detail and the perfect blacks, and then the blooming that's obvious in the black room is not so obvious in a bright room, but also the QM8 has such amazing blooming control. I don't even think that's an issue. So forget the refurbished part. I probably still get the QM8 unless, I'm trying to think what the unless would be. Unless you are coming from an OLED, you may notice the difference, but if you're coming from an older TV anyway, just go to the QM8 larger size and then go to OLED whenever you're ready. What do you think?
Well, I would say, to share a story about refurbished, during my panel lottery journey, refurbished simply means somebody returned it. There is no refurbishing. There's no wiping it down. There's no going into the settings or changing anything. So all the TVs I returned with dead pixels, terrible backlight issues, all those TVs were sold as refurb. And I would go into the store and they were all there. There was no notes about what was wrong with them. So in the case of maybe somebody bought the wrong size, most times somebody brought it back. They handled it at home. They squeezed the panel. They're just very hard to recommend. TVs are very delicate, especially OLEDs. So I would say I would steer clear of them. Just that's my personal experience.
Yeah, same here. That's why, yeah. But here's something that you could answer because he's talking about me. Jimmy says, nobody seems to be talking about the A80L. Why is that? I don't think I even mentioned the word A80L in any video except the one. These are the differences maybe between the different OLEDs, and even though it's in passing. But you've seen the A80L. You actually put out content on the A80L.
He's talking about
me. A brave man.
Yeah, so I basically, and even in my video, my thumbnail says the most overlooked TV. It's excellent. It's very good. It's doing content on it is dicey because nobody cares. I mean, the problem is it's a WRGB OLED. The A80s have been incrementally better every year, slightly better. They're just not sexy. They don't have that.
Wait. I'm going to post your review right now. Here's the link. This is Brian's review of the Sony A80L. I just posted it. If you guys want to watch it, go ahead and click on it.
I loved it.
No one's going to click on it.
Nobody. I mean, it's doing all right, but I will tell you that processing, I hate to keep saying it because it does sound like a Sony cop out, but the processing is legit. I mean, the detail in it, the clarity, it's not the brightest OLED, but it's not dim. But the problem is you're getting back into the S90C now. You're bumping back into it. The A80L is very consistent. It sounds fantastic, by the way. I would tell you, Samsung TV sound terrible.
I'm with you, man.
This Hisense is loud as hell.
And the G3 this year. What's up with the G3 and the S95C? I'm like,
I don't know, but the A80L's has like bass. And the A80L to me is a great TV. Again, it comes back into the pricing. But Sony's processing has now become like a comment. It is legit. Their processing is next level, and this year it's even better. Their detail is great. That XR clear is legit. So it's very. But you know what? The A80K was another one that not many people talked about, and unfortunately, it happened with the C3 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, UX. What's one about the UX? It reminds me of that RoboCop. Sucks. SUX. The car from RoboCop. It's a 2000 SUX.
Okay, so speaking of the Hisense UX, I'm going to share this with you guys. There's so many questions about this, and do you know why no one's talking about the UX? I'll tell you why no one's talking about the UX. It's because of, let's see here.
Got 300 people.
It is unavailable
Sammy?
nearby. But guess what? They already took $1,000 off, even though you can't buy it.
Boy, we haven't built it yet. It's on discount.
So I get this alert. UX received $1,000 off. I rushed to it. Can't even buy it. Apparently, one person has it. That's about it, right? Review one. And so nationwide, my understanding is there's less than 500 of these units available to Best Buy, to Robert. I know Robert Zone's carrying it, but he can't sell it because he doesn't know how many he's going to get. But so already, if you guys are ready to pull the trigger, this is it. But unfortunately, we won't know what it's going to be like. We might have to wait until the shootout, assuming we can get it to the shootout at all. I think Robert is working really hard. It may just end up being the QM8 versus the Sony X95L. So yeah, that's where the X90 the UX is.
Well, what I understand is that Hisense and those companies only sell in bulk. So it's like, hey, if you want to carry a Hisense, they're going to sell you the truck. You can't just order 3 or 4 of them. So
right.
It's kind of, but why are you releasing 500? Like they're Ferraris. We only made 10 of them
because it's $4,000, right? I mean,
which is like, I remember the Quantum P series in 2016 was $4,000.
Is that crazy? Jeez. So this is, I want to address this. Thank you, AJ. I know you guys won't be getting the X95L in smaller sizes, but would you know the 65-inch version will be the same panel? So first, so the US only gets the X93L in the 65-inch. However, we'll be getting a 65-inch Sharp XLED with 1,000 dimming zones. And we know that Sharp, Japan, takes processing very seriously. They are the same as Sony and Panasonic. So I'll be getting the 65-inch in for review as soon as Robert gets it. Let's see how well this Sharp does against the Sony X90L, because at this point I'm going to hold the X90L as the standard bearer for processing. So we'll make comparisons with full screen content, right? But I'm really excited to see how Sharp does. I mean, this is a good time to give Sharp some love. I'm going to be accused of being a Sharp fanboy, but I am a fanboy of any company that tries to break into the USA with a flagship product. I mean, it's easy to come here with your Fire TV for $200 or Vizio giving away TVs with advertising, right? That's easy. What's hard is selling an $1,800, $2,000 65-inch TV with 1,000 dimming zones and saying to the big boys, "I'll do you better, Sony." And that's what Sharp is doing. So I'm very excited. I hope it's a very good TV, and I hope they stay. But yeah, what have you heard about Sharp? I know you have Rob's inside ear about this stuff.
Well, what's funny is Sharp with what was the name of their Aquos? Yep.
I
mean, I remember, and I think they had the commercial with the yellow pixel. Maybe they had like the extra pixel in their marketing back in the day. They were very expensive, big TVs. They had bigger sizes than everybody else for a while there. They had the biggest sizes, and then they just disappeared. So to have them break back in, we need as many players as we can get. Bring back Panasonic as well if you can. But I'm glad, like, to FOMO's point, and I never said this to you, FOMO. When I was in England, it was impossible for me to find a Panasonic.
Really?
But they're withering away where Sharp is breaking in. I mean, Panasonic isn't sold at Harrods or any of these big department stores. So to see Sharp coming back this way is great. And it's just weird saying Sharp now, because as you see, this guy Don B says he has a Sharp microwave.
I have a Panasonic microwave.
It still sounds like you're talking about a dishwasher. Or shaver.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And let's see, I'm just scrolling down real quick, make sure I catch all your questions. Hey, thank you everyone for coming by. And if you haven't clicked like, which I forgot to click like for myself. All right, I just clicked like. So click like if you find this video useful so we can see other people. Now, how long do I have you, Brian? I know it's been a while.
I got to order some food for the kids, but...
I got to go to a Chinese restaurant and get some food.
But I think that, while we're getting towards the end... Oh, go ahead, Michael. Or go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Real quick, thank you for the super chat, Stephen. One more thing. Best 65-inch TV from my uncle, around $600. His main concern is clarity due to vision problem. I was thinking U6K at $650. Thoughts? So this is a whole different thing. Vision problem. I think when you have vision problem, you really need good contrast. If anything, I know all the TVs do not drop to 65 inches. So whatever TV it is, it really has to have good contrast because it makes seeing everything easier. Text, it almost as if you put it on contrast brightening mode, enhanced contrast, he will see better. And so it may end up being a Samsung. I mean, a TV known for its high contrast enhancement, I mean, which we never test, right? So, I would say get a 650 is such a hard budget. It is such a hard budget too.
and Steven, it's kind of hard because we're not lens crafters. We're like, he's like, look, this TV sucks. I can't see it. So I think that's a tough price point. But
Okay, so I need to have this now.
Sammy.
Sammy.
I've never met Sammy. I gotta hang out with Sammy. When are we gonna see Sammy?
We would. Yeah, we never know. I bump him at a Best Buy somewhere. Hey, so Sammy calibrated my QM8 on that long, like 9-hour, 10-hour calibration day, and the QM8, he's like, I said, but Sammy, it says 20 points of calibration. He's like, only 1 point works.
He's like,
so I was like, wow, that was quick, Sammy. What happened? Only 1 point worked. I couldn't fix anything else. So for enthusiasts, the QM8 is not the TV for you. But for everyone else who is very flexible in their watching content, right? Sports, streaming, they just want HDR pop. The QM8 is great. So it's very interesting, Sam. It's like the people who are buying it, they cannot stop saying wonderful things about it because I know what they like, right? People don't like blooming. They want perfect blacks. They want great contrast, which the QM8 has in droves. What it doesn't have is accuracy, but it has such good contrast. And I think that may win it for them.
Well, Fumo, do you remember we were at the shootout a couple of years ago, and one of the Samsung short throw projectors had this red that was like bleeding into everything, right? And everybody in the room was like, I don't know, I kind of like it. So, it was clearly a flaw, and it was clearly something that it got hit, but a couple of people are just like, kind of like it. So the majority of people, like, Sammy, I'm sure, hopefully I'll see you at MWAVE, but you'll see people that are like, is that a flaw? I kind of like it. I think I'll buy it. So it might be a reason they won't rectify it is people are actually going to buy it for that reason.
Hey, Classy. How's my audio? I thought my audio was getting a little bit better. So the reason it was so bad last time was I had it powered. So it's a wireless mic, but I had the receiver powered while plugged into the camera, and that created issues. So now it's not powered; it's running off of battery, right? But then he's saying my mic sounds muffled and hot at the same time. Maybe I should take off this cat, this dead cat. What do they call it? A dead cat? I'm sure there's a good story. Is this better? Is it less muffled now? Because I have a fan blowing, so I didn't want the wind.
Oh, I didn't even have a fan blowing because that's why I'm sweating over here. You have a fan going?
Yeah.
What the hell?
But this is key. Cost to performance, the QM8 is fine. But obviously, we are the cost no object people. You got to go with it.
What's going to be really interesting when we go to MWAVE is we're going to be talking to enthusiasts that will spend 50 grand on a speaker, not 2 speakers, but 1. Mm-hmm. So it'll be very interesting.
We had those $50,000 speakers last year. It was a Martin Logan, like the monolith, the top of the line Martin Logan. I think a pair was 90 grand. And I had to admit that was the best sounding speaker. We had all these different speakers between 30 grand to 80. I mean, we had the best from JTR, and I couldn't stop just listening to the monoliths because the entire everything, just the bass and the electrostatic, the entire thing was just, I was amazed. I was like, if I had 80 grand to spend on speakers, and they were trying to sell me the demo. If you take the demo, it's only 60 grand. I'm like,
That's like Robert. I remember when Robert was selling the Z9. He's like, hey, look, I won't tell anybody. I'll give it to you at discount. I'm like, so 27,000? Like, thanks.
Like, thank you for the discount.
I appreciate it. What's up, Brooklyn Blaze? Oh my god, dude.
Oh, hey, look. We might see Sammy. He's going to be at MWAVE. Oh, can't wait to see you, Sammy.
Very cool. Please let me know who you are. Again, I can't see anyone.
I
For all you
know.
guys that are just jumping in, again, talking about we're going to be in Kansas City this week. What's up, Brooklyn Blaze?
Oh wait, I'm much louder than Brian. I need to lower. I I need
It's
to talk
almost done.
softly. I cannot get too excited. See, this is so hard for me. I get too excited too easily.
Yeah, our energy. Wait till you see us at this end. I mean, it's going to be fun.
So I have to tell you the story of J.R. Price. So he was saying, FOMO, when are you going to give out free TVs? I got 6 kids. I need all the free TVs I can get. I'm like, 6 kids? Oh my God.
I should be watching TV.
Oh, if I had a Toshiba to give away, I'd give it away.
6 kids. You're like, oh my God.
All right,
That's
let's
amazing. But you're like, oh.
I know that Brian has to run out to dinner soon, so you want to wrap up? Like last minute questions, everyone. If I missed your questions, go ahead and ask now. 10 minutes. Reminder: we'll all be at MWAVE, including Sammy apparently. So can't wait to see Sammy there. Right, we're gonna have a good time. And I'm trying to think now before we leave. I know we haven't seen the Sony A95L yet, but what TV is the best for you? So your use case. If you can get any TV, what TV would you get this year? I know you can get any TV. Yeah, you. What TV would you get, Brian?
But see, that's where I think even my conversation at MWAVE is, if it doesn't exist, don't buy it for what your use case is. So the fact that they don't have an 83-inch QD OLED or an MLA, it's kind of hard for me to buy an 85. So I'm in that weird spot of the TV I want, they don't make. They don't have a Z3 with MLA. They don't have, so I'm actually kind of hanging on to my C1. But my favorite TV this year is the S95C. If they had one at 83 inches, I wouldn't even be on this live stream. I'd be sitting home playing it. So I really like Quantum.OLED. I think it gives me everything that Samsung has been known for in the saturation and the pop, but with an OLED. So for me, that would be it. Probably at larger TVs, I hate to say it, the QM8 is very attractive simply because for the price, if it's not, I'll give you an example. I almost bought the QM8 just to throw on the wall or to try down here. If it doesn't beat this, it's so cheap, I'll just put it upstairs. You can't say that about any other 85-inch mini LED like the X93 or X95 because they're so expensive. So that value proposition has made even myself really second guess. Like my QN95C was ready to go. The QM8's existence had me second guessing that. And yeah. I'm in the industry. So,
hey,
but
no, I was going to address this real quick. We didn't have an all-day Prime Day marathon this year because I had a feeling that the deals won't be great. I saw all the deals already, and like, how can it get any less expensive, right? We saw the S90C, the S95C hit all-time lows. Nothing happened on Prime Day any less, and it looked like LG was not going to do any huge discounts. You can just get a feeling, and so at the end, I would do a live stream. It would just be us complaining about the lack of deals because TCL hit its lowest deals on the QM8 last week. So there it is, right? Like over the weekend. So it was I would have done it if it would, and I have to get ready for MWAVE. That's another reason too. I'm like, if I do it all day, I'll be too tired to go to MWAVE. Maybe next year. I don't know. Maybe Black Friday. We should do like a Black Friday live stream. I'll call Brandon and see what he's doing because yes, it could be fun. We could do that.
Definitely.
All right. And okay, let's wrap this. For me, my best TV. Well, I think I got it. The 77-inch S95C. That's just. I know the 77-inch A95L will be amazing. Let's get that out of the way. But it's not here, so I cannot even choose it. So if it ends up being awesome at the shootout, and we'll have the S95C and the A95L, and if it's that good, then yeah, I'll replace my 65-inch G3 with a 65-inch A95L as the reference for HDR. So, but until then, the G3 will be my reference 65-inch size HDR. And gaming, I forgot to tell you, Brian, when you get the QM8, which I hope, we'll test it at MWAVE, definitely you have to try out gaming on the QM8. It's really good. I think you'll like the gaming bar. The game bar is really good.
Well, I mean, I also like that these TVs are doing this 144 hertz, even if it's a pseudo, what is it, cutting the resolution, vertical resolution. Um, if the clarity's there, then that's pretty cool that they're actually pushing that, and they're actually doing more than the bigger brands, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is to address Don. I did a search on Sharp TV, and apparently they sold the North American business in 2015 to Hisense. So
Yes.
they relicensed their name to Hisense. The Japanese Sharp is mostly owned, I think, by Foxconn now, but still, we're still run by a team in Japan. And outside of the US, they are still real Sharp TVs. In the US, it's Hisense being allowed to rebrand the name on their TVs. However, this year, the Sharp X LED will be the Japanese engineered and designed Sharp. Thank heavens. I'm like, wait, maybe I'm actually reviewing a U8K. I hope not.
But you know what's ironic is Sharp actually licensed the Panasonic or the Pioneer Elite name, if you remember that. So they had a Sharp Elite LCD that looked just like the Pioneer Elite, and you're like, you don't even know what the hell you're looking at.
Yeah.
It looks just like it's actually a Sharp.
All right, it's time for me to go get dinner for my kids. And thank you, Brian, for joining us today. And I will see you in a few days at Kansas City. And for everyone else, I'm going to put up the links for our Kansas City event. It's this Saturday and Sunday. We'll be live streaming. We'll be doing some fun stuff, talking to people, having fun. Hopefully my mic works better. Hopefully it's not too hot. And until next time, everyone, stop the FOMO.